Welcome to episode 5 of Dishing with the Pathways DTMs. My name is David Lintz, and I'm pleased to be your host for an interview with another Toastmaster in our district who has earned the Distinguished Toastmaster designation under the Pathways program. Jay Karthik is one of those people who approaches all of his activities, including Toastmasters, with a go big or go home mindset. A past president of his Watertown Saturday Toastmasters Club, Jay has also served the district as an area director. As a mentor for the Tragic Comedy Toastmasters Club, he helped guide that club to President's Distinguished status in their first year of existence and was recognized as our district's Club Mentor of the Year. He served as conference chair for last spring's CLCon and was recognized as our district's Toastmaster of the Year. He was also recognized as a club member of the quarter a few years ago. He has volunteered at prison clubs and has led or co-led 3 youth leadership program sessions for budding young leaders in the district. And he has mentored many Toastmasters at varying levels of experience. Currently, he is working on honing his improv skills and is tireless in his efforts to incorporate improv games at meetings he facilitates. Jay, welcome.
Thanks for having me, David. Really appreciate it. But I do wonder, I'm not in your top 3 of your invitees. Maybe I'll work harder to be in your top 3 next time around, not number 5. Just kidding.
There you go. Always number 1 in the heart, though, Jay. That's the important thing.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about what you did for your DTM project.
Absolutely, David. I wasn't too familiar with what a DTM project entails, and when I started knowing more about it, I absolutely wanted to embark on that journey. And what I realized was the time when I tried to pursue this ambition, Toastmasters all around the world were having a tough time retaining members and gaining new members. And I wanted to do a project that's not within Toastmasters, although that is needed for us to retain our members and have good member experience and whatnot. I just felt like I need to go out, get involved in some kind of outreach program and bring Toastmasters to people that haven't really heard about Toastmasters. So that was the journey that I embarked on.
So I know it ended up with you working with people who were visually impaired. And I can imagine there's a number of rewards that you feel for doing that, but can you tell us about what you found particularly rewarding in working with this group?
Absolutely. Having been experienced with some of the youth leadership program, as well as having volunteered at prison clubs, I feel like these are folks that are waiting for a second opportunity. And in the case of YLP, they're just waiting for their first big break and they want to go and shine, be better leaders, communicators. And the same thing holds good for people who are visually impaired as well. They need to be able to have a network where they could socialize with people, have a platform where they could really find their voice as well as be heard. And I felt like this was a perfect opportunity because it lined up with my goal of having to work or reach outside Toastmasters and bring Toastmasters to them in a way of not only helping them, but also grow our membership if it's even possible.
I think it's great that you made the connection in your mind that for people who are visually impaired, developing Toastmaster skills might be particularly appropriate. So I think that part's great.
Awesome.
And one of the projects that I think most people working on a DTM have is they have kind of a grand vision of what they want to do. And often it involves a fairly broad project. So in order to do it, to convert it into something that you can actually get accomplished, you have to figure out a way to refine the project scope to make it manageable. So what did you do? How did you make your project manageable size?
Great question. This is something I employ in every walk of my life. Anything I do, if a goal is too daunting or big, try to break it into smaller pieces that are more manageable. And in this particular project, what I realized was sky's the limit. I could do as much as possible. And so what I decided to do was have like a commit goal and a stretch goal. I told myself, I absolutely have to hit the commit goal because that's what I'm committing to myself. And for me to be like calling this effort a successful effort. And I also knew that I could go further along, above and beyond my commit goal, and that's where I defined what my stretch goal is going to be. My commit goal was to work with at least two organizations. I ended up working with three different organizations. I'll tell you what they are. And as part of this journey, I also told myself if I could partner with one of these schools and maybe work with some fresh graduates, run a demo meeting for them, bring Toastmasters to them, and net walk away with at least one member. And I walked away with one member. There was only one person who joined our club, Watertown Saturday Toastmasters. That was a club that I was part of when I ran this program. My commit goal was that basically to run a demo meeting, work with a few different organizations, and try to win at least one member. But also, my stretch goal was to have some kind of a periodic cadence, some kind of a partnership with schools such as the Perkins School that is in Massachusetts, as well as the Carroll School for the Blind. What I learned, David, is Carroll School for the Blind helps people run rehab programs, not for people that were blind for a long time, but people who just happen to lose their sight, because it's more hard for people who just suddenly lost their sight as opposed to somebody who was perhaps born blind. If somebody's born blind, they just don't even look at this as something that they are missing. But on the other hand, if somebody has just recently lost vision, they're going to struggle. And Carroll School for the Blind does a phenomenal job of running all kinds of rehab programs, getting them used to what they need to go through in life and stuff like that. And because you have people that are enrolling in their program, there's always a constant set of X number of people that graduate. And so if we can tap into that particular program and maybe run a meeting for them, we might end up winning more members and also show them the value of Toastmasters.
Wonderful. You said something at the beginning of your answer that I just want to highlight about setting a goal that you want to hit, which I think you described as the minimum. You had to get at least there, and then a stretch goal, something more that you could do. I think a lot of us think in terms of projects as setting out a specification for the project, and that's what you do. But in fact, you never hit exactly the specification. So the notion of having a range of possible outcomes, all of which are satisfactory, but some are better than others, is really a good way to look at a reasonably complex project or a project that's going to take some time. So sure. I'm going to try that next time I do something. I commend that to the people listening to this to give it a try as well. So one of the things that we do when we do a DTM project is we work with a team, and part of working with a team means being able to get the best ideas out from everybody involved. And that often involves brainstorming sessions, which of course requires communication skill to throw out what your ideas are, but also requires listening skills to hear what others are saying and to make sure you understand their ideas and that you're able to build on them and so forth. So I'd be interested to hear about how you think you improved your brainstorming and listening skills over the course of this project.
Absolutely. Happy to answer, David. First and foremost, when I embarked on this journey, I had the privilege to work with two of our district leaders, and I'm sure you know them, and many of the audience listening would know them as well. I had the privilege to work with Jesse as well as Carly Cox. Carly Cox was back then the club growth director. And
just to stop you for a second. So Jesse, you're referring to Jesse Welty, right?
Jesse Welty, that is
okay.
More specific. Jesse Welty was also an officer, not sure exactly what he did, but he was some kind of a liaison who was like working on bringing technology to people and also facilitating hybrid meetings and stuff like that. And so I took his help as well as Carly's to make our website more accessible for people that do not have sight, and make it more user-friendly with audio messages that I believe Jesse recorded and stuff like that. He came up with all kinds of QR code that'll bring people to our website should they even be able to scan it and stuff like that. So great opportunity to work with them. So when I partnered with Jesse and Carly, there was a nice opportunity that just presented itself out of thin air, which is the fact that there was this National Federation for the Blind, and they were running a 2-day workshop in Boston, and they invited Toastmasters, gave us free space to run our own booth and stuff like that. And the timing was perfect, right? Like I was just wanting to work with the Carroll School for the Blind as well as Perkins School, and now I have an opportunity to team up with the National Federation for the Blind. And we had visitors from all around the world, and many of them hadn't heard what Toastmasters is all about. So we were able to have our own booth and talk to people, give them an overview of what exactly happens at a meeting and why Toastmasters. And I could see a lot of them walking away with the notion that, yeah, they could feel empowered, they would have a platform where they could be heard, and they could also grow their communication skill. And so, yeah, that was a great opportunity. But to come back to your question, I also used some of these listening skills and brainstorming skills as I was trying to put a team together to run a demo meeting for the fresh graduates coming out of the Carroll School for the Blind. And I was able to tap into a lot of volunteers from the Watertown Saturday Toastmasters, which was my home club back then. But also, I realized there were one or two people within our club that were either having partial vision or they were completely blind. So I was able to also partner with them and understand from them what they had to say, share, as well as from their perspective, having been Toastmasters, what could potential guests be looking at when they join a program such as this? So it was all around being able to listen, collaborate, build a dream team, and also run this demo program successfully. And I call it a successful program because many were interested, at least one of them was a paid member.
So I'm curious, how does this tie into your professional life? I'm sure you have similar projects where you need to brainstorm and so forth. So did you feel that doing the DTM project carried over into your professional life?
100%. The DTM accomplishment itself, it is something to be proud of, but I cherish the journey and I relish it because throughout the journey, it took me through a lot of winding scenic paths, met with a lot of people that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to interact with, learned quite a bit. It in fact helped me run a successful CLCon last year where I had to influence quite a number of members to be either the ambassadors of CLCon or just be committee leaders and subcommittee leaders who could go ahead and promote the word of CLCon. So certainly being able to persuade people, influence and motivate came handy. And at work too, I'm for the last few years taken on a sales role. I used to be an engineer for the longest time, and having switched my career, I realized that I need to be able to influence my customers, be able to persuade them to buy into what I was trying to pitch. And of course, this DTM project and everything I learned along the way certainly helped me. And if I could just take a quick detour and just have a quick plug for something that I've been able to do, not to toot my own horn, but something that I want to share with our audience, because I recently was recognized, David, as one of the top 1% sellers at my company. I'm involved with B2B selling, and it is hard, especially during pandemic and post-pandemic. It isn't been easy, but I'd like to say that there are three things that helped me reach the height that I was able to, which is grit, some luck, and Toastmasters. And I say Toastmasters because projects such as DTM really opened my eyes. I was able to look at things very differently, be able to collaborate with, like I said, a lot of people, motivate them. And if I could persuade people to take on projects and run a demo meeting with me, the same kind of persuasion skill can be extrapolated to doing things at work. Because when you sell, it's not only selling to the customers, but you got to get your teams within your company buy into the notion of what you're trying to pitch. So it's bi-directional, and I was able to win-win with all of that.
Now, I think that's a fantastic point. I think a lot of people in sales are properly very customer focused, and I suppose that's how you make your living. So that's what you do.
Yeah.
But I believe in order to be successful, you also have to be team focused. Yep. You have to make sure that you have the people backing you up to do your job. And part of the way you do that is by developing some abilities to motivate others.
Right.
So one of the things we all have to do in our DTM projects is to have what I refer to as a post-mortem or a lessons learned session, where you go through it, figure out what you did well, things you might be able to do a little bit better if you were to do it a second time. I'm interested if you think you got a lot out of your lessons learned session, how you structured it, and maybe some things that you learned from that session that you might do a project differently in the future.
Sure thing, David. We always have the opportunity to rather go back and look at what we did well and reassess the situation. And I had a similar opportunity as well. After I completed the demo meeting, I ended up meeting with some of my fellow members at Watertown Saturday Toastmasters, as well as folks like this gentleman, Prakash, who does not have sight, but is always willing to participate in any kind of Toastmasters endeavors. And so was able to work with all of them and really look at what could we have done differently. And there wasn't a whole lot different other than one key thing, which is recruit as many volunteers as possible. And if you're trying to embark on a journey that is really big, you don't want to bite more than you could chew. And as a result of that, you need to have quite a few people that you recruit who can act as liaisons, because I would just need one person talking to Perkins School, another person talking to the Carroll School for the Blind, and other such organizations as well. I did partner with Perkins School, like I said, and they were phenomenally helpful in helping us come up with Toastmasters flyers that were printed in Braille, and I couldn't have done that without their help. So you just need more people, motivate more people to buy into what it is that you're envisioning, and motivate them enough. Have fun along the way as well, because anything I do with them, even if it's a prep meeting or a brainstorming session, as you had mentioned during the intro, I'm a fan of improv. Try to bring in improv games and make it easy and light for everybody to just collaborate and be the best form they could be.
I think, again, a very important point that if you want to be effective, there's so much that you can do with your own two hands, and some people are very impressive what they can do all by themselves. But you certainly have a heck of a lot more leverage when you have a team behind you, and particularly when you're able to present a vision in a clear way and have everybody buy into the vision and then be able to go forth. So many more things you can do. I mean, it's an additional arm every time you have another person helping you. So I appreciate you highlighting that point.
Sure.
This was wonderful, Jay. Thank you so much. Before we close this out, do you have any closing thoughts or words of advice for prospective DTMs?
Absolutely, David. My closing comment would be that, as several of our members know, not many people pursue DTM, and I wonder why. Obviously, there are times when you haven't really heard about it, or you're having higher priorities that you're dealing with, putting out fire at work or whatever the scenario might be. Obviously, you may not have the time, but having learned what DTMs could do and having learned what the journey of DTM is, I cannot stop but highlighting everything that is great with DTM. There is everything to win and nothing to lose, because, like I said, you may end up reaching the goal, you may not end up reaching the goal, but that doesn't matter. The journey itself is so much enjoyable, and it's so much of how do I put it? It just adds so much of value to everything that you do in every walk of your life. I had the privilege to mentor clubs, and this was not something that I thought I could be capable of doing. I hadn't even envisioned myself mentoring individual contributors, let alone a club. And having had the opportunity, I realized that only when you take a chance, you really know how successful you could be. So a lot of people, if they're second guessing themselves, I tell them, go ahead, you got to play and you got to be in it to win it. So just sign up and grab any opportunity that comes your way. And there are so many sub projects within this DTM journey, and each one of them is going to help us be the best that we could possibly be. You may not be the most successful DTMs out there, but you could be the most distinguished that you could possibly be. That's how I look at it. So you can be a better version of yourself. So go ahead, embrace this, and you will thank District 31.
Yeah, no, well said. I think, like a lot of things in Toastmasters, indeed, like a lot of things in life, you get out of it what you put into it. And there's no sugarcoating it. If you do a DTM project, you have to be prepared for a lot of work, and you have to allocate enough time that you can actually get through what you want to do, but just a tremendous sense of satisfaction after you complete one. And it's like anything else, the steps involved in doing a DTM are all steps that you pick up along the way of completing a couple of paths and pathways. So it's doable. It's really just, to use the word you used before, it's really just having the grit to stick with it and make it happen.
Right.
All right. So again, Jay, thank you both for telling us about your DTM project, and even more importantly, for making the district more inviting to the visually impaired. And I'd also like to thank my audience, everybody who's viewing this, for your interest in dishing with the Pathways DTMs. As Toastmasters, we all know how valuable and candid and constructive feedback can be. If you have any feedback that you're willing to share with me, I really look forward to receiving it. The best way to reach me is by email at the following address: Until the next episode, be well and keep striving to achieve your goals.